Well, welcome back. Hopefully you've had good morning sessions and a great lunch. I just want to say thank you to the Lake people for their wonderful lunch and their wonderful service. Okay, we will be moving on to our panels session today. Our moderator for today is Michelle Swatsky-Koop. Michelle was born in Steinbach, Manitoba. She competed for Canada at the women's volleyball, the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia. There she ended up with a 9th place finish at the women's national team. While growing up, Michelle developed and pursued her interest in music and athletics, choosing volleyball as her sport of choice. As a university player for the Manitoba Bisons, she was a 2-time U Sport championship MVP in 1990 and 1991, as well as a 2-time U Sport Player of the Year for the 1990-91 season and the 1991-92 season. Michelle was part of the Bisons volleyball team that won 3 U Sport national championships, 90, 91, and 92. And in 1995, she was part of the bronze medal finish at the Pan American Games in Argentina. So just a few things. In March 1996, the team qualified for the Olympic Games, and in July that same year, they finished 9th at the Summer Games. After competing in the 1996 Olympics, Michelle joined Golden West Radio in the spring of 1997, became the co-host of the morning show. She has been married to Chris Koop for 22 years, has 17-year-old twin boys, Paxton and Tyson, who she's coached for the last 7 years. She maintains a music studio of 15 piano and voice students in her free time, and loves motivational speaking and emceeing, and it's her passion to inspire young women like you guys, no matter what their stature, to go for their dreams. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much. It's always kind of nice to hear that and to remember that, but it's so long ago that I need reading glasses now, and apparently you can't wear those on the volleyball court, so I'm done playing. Anyway, I just keep them on my head when I coach, try to look somewhat athletic. It's not that good when I put them on, but anyways. It's really a pleasure to be here. I am a huge fan of LeadHERship. I think I've become more and more aware of how important it is to foster confidence in us as women, and confidence and just belief in ourselves again. And it's interesting because I know people have come to me and said, well, if anyone can do it, you can do it. And people have said that to me almost every year when I stand alone in a gym full of boys over and over again, because I gave birth to boys, which means if they need a coach and you live in a small town, you coach boys. And it doesn't matter if you're a woman. And if you want them to be really good and you come out of the system, you coach them in club too. And then you see the men come out. And then when you start to beat them, a lot of the time, then you see the real men come out. And it's not a man thing. I love them. I feel very, very respected. I really do. But even as respected as I feel, and as successful as we have been coming from rural Manitoba and, against all odds, really competing with the big clubs in Winnipeg and all of that on the boys' side, every year that I decide to coach the next level, I'm nervous because I wonder if I know enough about the boys' game, and I wonder if I know enough to help these boys get better, And that is hard. It's hard for me. Next year I'm coaching 18 U boys. I've decided. That's it. I'm doing it. We're starting a boys club at U of M. We're doing it. And I'm going to coach big boys, and I've called them and I've texted them and I said, you need to play on my team because I'm good enough to do this. But I don't always feel like that, And one of my biggest opponents this year, I've become good friends with him. Well, he's about 6'9", and he's a dude. And he's got a great team. And I have to stand up and say, I can do this. And that's hard sometimes, and it's hard sometimes as a woman. But you can do it, and I think sometimes we just have to say that we can, and jump in with both feet, and just do it. So anyway, I wanted to give you that background, because I feel very inspired about today, that more More women should be, and I think women and men should coach men and women. It's fantastic. But we have to be brave. And you don't have to be the best when you start, because you probably won't be anyways. I'm still not the best, but I keep trying. I keep telling myself that. Anyway. All right, speaking of the best, we have an unbelievable panel here today. I'm really excited about this. And I know, I've got to tell you a little more over lunch, and I'm really excited. She's coaching volleyball right now, so we should thank her and her team for giving her up for this lunch hour. And she's coaching varsity boys. Woo! Okay, all right. I'm going to start, I'll start right here. This is Laura Vincent. Laura has been immersed in sport, primarily hockey, most of her life. She started her career as the only girl on the boys' team in the small town of Arborg. She kept at it and earned a spot on Team Canada's under-22 women's hockey team from 2006 to 2010, and was part of the senior national women's program from 2006 to 2012. During that time, she was also a member of the University Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs, where they won 2 NCAA Division I championships. Incredible. From her hockey player career, she transitioned to a strength and conditioning coach and a high school teacher. In the strength and conditioning world, she has had the opportunity to work with young kids to professional athletes. As a teacher, she has further expanded her coaching to several sports, including, as we said, volleyball, badminton, and track and field. Laura believes being active is key in a happy, healthy life. She feels fortunate to help others progress as not only athletes, but as healthy, happy people. Please welcome Laura to our panel. All right, Kirby Cote. Kirby, first of all, is awesome. She's in the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. I was so excited to see you walk across that stage. Kirby has represented Canada at 3 Paralympic Games as a swimmer and has a haul of medals and records, and that's true. She has been inducted to the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame, as I said, and is a self-proclaimed badass Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu purple belt. She is strong inside and out. More importantly, she's kind, she's funny, unwavering in her support, and she likes post-training carbs. Her friend wrote this, she's telling me. This is the best bio ever. I'm changing mine. Although I'm not nearly as cool as you, so I better keep it. She loves Boston Terriers on any occasion, to not wear pants. An inspiration for all the right reasons. Kirby Cote. That's fantastic. Kathy Stace. There she is. Kathy's been involved in the sport of gymnastics for over 50 years. You can't even believe it because she's 35. I don't know how you did that. When she first started competing, there was not a gymnastics program for girls. The girls had to go to the YMCA and train with the boys' team. Now at least 90% of the membership in gymnastics is female. From a women in sport perspective, this is a number to be admired. Kathy became an official early on and has officiated at several world championships, Commonwealth Games, Pan Am Games, international competitions, 2 Olympics, 2000, 2004. This past year, she attended her 50th Canadian Championships. Kathy was hired in 1988 as a technical director for the Manitoba Gymnastics Association and ended her career there as the executive director. From gymnastics, the amazing Kathy Stace. And one more, Janet McMahon. Amazing. Janet has worked in sport administration for over 30 years, playing various roles. Currently, she is the director of sport at Sport Manitoba. In addition to attending many games, she also worked for the host societies of the 1999 Pan Am Games and the 2017 Canada Summer Games. She played basketball at the University of Winnipeg and has coached ever since. She is on the executive of the Corridon Community Center and the basketball convener. More recently, her personal sport interests focus on lifetime sports, such as cross-country skiing, cycling, and swimming. She's a big believer that a few simple changes in the way we teach sports to our kids will inspire them to stay active for life. And that means a longer, happier, and healthier life for us all. Please welcome Janet McMahon. So we're going to get right into the questions, and I think it's great. We have such a good variety. We have athletes, coaches, administrators, officials right here for you to hear what they feel about some of these questions and about the participation of females in sport. I think we're dealing with one mic, is that right? So if you have a thought, we're going to raise your hand. That's all good. It's all good. So the first question I want to ask, and I'm just going to let the first hand up answer it. How's that? And then honestly, ladies, we are going to cherish everything you say. So if you have something in a thought, just grab the mic, and well, not before someone else is done. I think we're all pretty intense up here, probably. How do we increase, ladies? How do we increase female participation in sport?
Because I'm not sure this morning if the people in the analytical drive, all of those, I'm analytical. So I have notes. And I've written down and researched everything that I want to tell you. But my first answer to this question is an example. In disc sports, which is a relatively new sport, they say for their board, they have a gender equity policy. So they have 9 people on their board, and they must have 4 of each gender for the board to be complete. So right away, they're saying women are important in our sport. Oh, sorry. No problem. Make it worth it. So now I won't speak as loud as I.
Okay.
There.
Oh, that's right. Okay. The other thing that they do is their goal is for every female team has to have a female coach, and they are paying for those women to take the level 1 or NCCP courses. So that's part of their funding, and they're using it to support women. The other thing they do, that if a woman represents them at the national conference, they will pay all expenses for that woman to attend, as well as child care, if that is a cost. So this is a sport that I think has set an excellent example of how to better involve women in sport.
Okay, well, thanks for those stats, Kathy, because I think we don't need any more research. We don't need any more data. It's very clear that we're missing women and girls. There is a gap. We need to find solutions. We need more participants, we need more leaders, and we need more media on our side. Who knew who Bianca Andreescu was before she won? Nobody, right? We don't hear about Eugenie at all anymore, right? We need more stories. We need to share those stories. We need to tell those stories. We need to get it out there in front of people. We need men and boys to help us. Men have daughters. They care. Look at the men who are in the room. We probably all coach women, right? We need to engage them and tell our story and get them to tell our story to other people. We also need to look at the system. Right now, the system that we have in sport, the way sport is organized in Canada, we're not doing justice to our children, not just girls. We have to think about context. We need to think about the diverse audience that we have. We have to be inclusive. We need to be accessible. We need to be welcoming. So I'm telling you things that you already know. But think about what we do. We engage kids. Like, I have 2 boys. I'm with Michelle. I've coached boys. I should be coaching girls. There's no question. But I've coached boys. My kids are very physically literate. They were from day one, because my husband and I took them out. We went to the playground, we kicked around a soccer ball, we threw a softball, we played with the monkey bars, they did gymnastics, they took swimming lessons, they cross-country skied, they did things they didn't like to do, right? We took them downhill skiing every year. We did that trek across the western Regina. We love you, but get that bridge built, please. So my point is, and they loved, if I asked them until they were in grade 9 what their favorite thing at school was, number 1 was their phys ed class. And you know what? In elementary school, I think a lot of girls say that too. But we're not giving them the same quality of an experience by the time they get to junior high. We need to change that, and I'm not blaming phys ed teachers at all. But we need to, we can't have a one-size-fits-all, and that's our system. We tier them, we have, because there's enough in boys, we tier the girls. Talk to Burnett in Manitoba. We don't tier. We have girls that are playing with girls that have played for 6-7 years with girls that have never played, right? There isn't that opportunity to play with your friends we start cutting them, right? Because we've got to be the best. We expect people to travel halfway across the city when they're little kids. We can't even walk to our community centers anymore. We tend to put the youngest kids with the worst coaches, or with a parent that doesn't have the confidence, doesn't have the time, doesn't have any training, right? We do that. And then we expect these kids to perform. Once they get up to be, absolutely, if athletes want to go on and be successful at a world level, at 15 and 16, whatever the age of the sport, they do need to specialize. We do need to provide different resources at those levels, there's no question. But we shouldn't be starting to do that at age 8. So it doesn't matter whether we're female or whether we're male or whether we're something else. The system that we've created is not allowing for us to be inclusive, accessible, and welcoming. So we need targets like DISC, we need measures, we need women to step up, and we need men and women to step up.
I 100% agree. Oh, did this come off? Yeah. Press the button down there. Yeah. Press this one. I have to stay here. So it keeps going on. Apologize.
Might be really loud. I just said I 100% agree, and I'm just gonna add like a tiny bit to that. And I think where I see a lot of passion in sport in general, depending male or females in sport, is really at that grassroots level. And I think I'd really like to see a lot more people that are inspired, just like you said, stepping up. I think probably a lot of people here could relate with, they're involved in sport because somebody was needed in that role, and they just were like, okay, I think I can do that, or I'll figure it out, or or I want to do that, and then next thing you know, this is where they are. And I think there's a lot of stories where it started out that way and it's grown into a success story. Yeah, like, and I, with or without the support of your male counterparts within sport, but yeah, I think we should reinforce that, just the participant level, the grassroots level, and just getting people involved and having fun in sport. It doesn't have to grow into a competitive aspect, but I would really love if any of you even know somebody and you just think they're talented and they've got leadership qualities and they're kind of sitting around doing nothing and have some free time. I think you could easily be like, hey, like, there's this board, or there's this team that needs a manager, or there's this team that needs a coach, or the community is missing this. For me, I'm in a male-dominated sport, and around the world, they've started these women's open mats. So they invite any combat sport, female, judo, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, MMA, and you can come together and you can train with other women. And it's a very open and sharing environment and non-competitive, other than the part where you're actually fighting each other. But it's not like a competition, and you get different bodies and different styles. And we started out with, I think, 3 women 8 years ago from 3 different clubs or 2 different clubs, I can't remember. And I think the largest one we've had is about 37 women from maybe like 8 or 9 different clubs, and that's literally just Facebook. So I don't know, I think if you just put the word out and you stick to it, and it's okay if it's only you and one other athlete, I think that's totally acceptable. Just keep pushing through.
And I agree 100% with what they've said. And just adding from the rural perspective, growing up in a small town, and now I'm teaching in Gimli, living in a small town, there's just not as much. We need to provide more opportunity for having those programs. When I was obviously, as they said, the only girl playing on a boys hockey team, because the closest girls team was in Stonewall. So for a 6-year-old, that's a far drive. And Arbrick did actually end up creating a female team when I was about 12, and there was a team of 15 girls from Arbrick playing, who would have played starting probably at 6 years old, but weren't like me, so didn't have maybe the confidence, or I happened to have only friends that were boys when I was 6, so that's probably why I played hockey. All my friends were doing it, but for these other girls, they would have joined if there was a team. So I think in rural areas, it's we need to provide those opportunities. We have to work harder at making sure there are hockey teams and ringette teams and volleyball teams and all of those opportunities for females.
So Kirby. Turn it off and then turn it on. Okay.
Ladies, do not touch that button.
No, you have to, you might have to just turn it off.
Oh, yeah? Okay, well, we'll just do this, because we're ladies. I'm just kidding. That was a shot. And people thinking this is what a lady does, okay? All right. Kirby, you were just saying, though, about your jiu-jitsu and stuff. And my next question is how do we encourage women, young women, girls, to try all sports? I'm just going to go back to you. You mentioned Facebook and those kind of things, but you're in a sport, honestly, I'd be a little scared to try. Although I think if I got a little mad, I'd be pretty good. But jiu-jitsu, that kind of thing. I don't know, and you can even have some thoughts on that. How do we get them to try all sports?
Good job. Thank you.
Oh, no, yeah, I nailed it. I think we're good.
Okay. Jiu-jitsu finger. Okay, so I think really what brought the women's open mat idea was actually a Facebook group called the Women's Grappling Network. So 8 years ago when I started the sport, there was maybe one other woman in the entire province doing it, and she was injured, so I really didn't even meet her for about a year. Anyway, so there was you go online, and then I found videos of women doing jiu-jitsu, and I was like, okay, there are black belts in this sport, and they're pretty amazing. And then I found that there was this women's grappling network, and I joined that. So when I joined, it was again maybe like 1,000 women from like 5 or 6 different countries, and I think now it's into the 7,000 from like 20-something different countries. And every single topic is discussed, from like what sports bra works best for this, or I just had a baby, and what's it like coming back to sport? What's it like coming back to training? It is just a list of really great conversations that women are having with other women. There's coaches on there, there's athletes on there, there's young athletes on there. They're like, hey, my club is hosting this event for women. Hey, this bracket for women is really small and there's no one for me to fight in it. Anyone in New York City, this age, this weight, this bracket, does you want to sign up and come compete with me? I'm hosting this event. We need volunteers. I'm in this area. Is anyone interested? And it's an amazing conversation. There's conversations about issues in sport as far as sexual assault goes, and the moderators of the group will post anonymously for another person, and there can be an open conversation about issues that this person is having in sport or something that happened to them, and they're reaching out to women in the community. So it is an extremely inclusive and safe space, and I actually was saying, I think I'm going to start a Facebook page for women in sport in Manitoba, so look out for that, and we'll see how that goes.
I'm just gonna grab it.
Just because I think you've probably analyzed everyone, so we might get you to answer every single question on the analytical side. I believe you. But no, you're very helpful to us actually, because I think it puts some numbers to the thing. And one of my questions was, we all know, and Janet, you alluded to it, about how girls in elementary school, like you said, yeah, I love gym, and then as junior high gets, I'd like to ask you, I'm sort of jumping to the next one, just so you know, you can go on your thing. How do we change the framework though? So we know that's a reality, that they drop out of sport. How do we change the framework as to why girls drop out of sport?
I don't actually have a lot of info on that. That's okay. Yes. No, it's okay. When we met last time, I forget what the session was called, where we had a lot of people involved talking about women in sport and how to get them involved. One of the fellows that was there was a coach from the soccer team from the inner city, and he said his biggest problem was that he got the girls to play soccer and they were doing quite well. He couldn't get them to games because their parents don't support them in sport because they're too busy supporting them in life. And so all he needed was a bus. And he needed a bus to take all these kids to their soccer games, and then he would be able to keep this team together. But because there was no finances to pay for the bus, the team folded. And I think, I know this was around the time that we heard we were going to, Canada was going to get women in sport, $3 million over 4 years, and we're not going to see any of that money. But I had a hope that that kind of money would be available for programs that are already running and already successful, that they could then afford those kind of things to keep women involved in sport.
And we do see some agencies that are doing things like that. There are some great programs out there, the Boys and Girl Club, some of the newcomer programs that we have, so it's not all lost. But they're small examples. We need to expand these opportunities, right? So if you ask the question about how do we change the framework,
Yeah.
we need more role models. We need more opportunity for young women and girls to feel some kind of connection to whatever it is they're doing, to the sport, but to the people that they're there with. I mean, think about us. We love to talk. When we coach, we demand silence. Listen to me, I'm the coach, right? We need to allow some young women and girls some self-direction. Whenever I've coached girls, I've given them 10 minutes to get the sillies out, right? So then we can actually do what we want. The other thing is we're so focused on the technical information, right? They want to have fun. Every single survey I've ever seen in my 30 years, the number one reason why children play sport is because it's fun. Well, we take the fun out of almost everything that we do for girls because we coach to some degree how we were coached. We've been enlightened. As Michelle said at lunch, as coaches, we've been on a journey, right? And the other thing that we're just specialization too early, right? So kids start playing hockey and that's all they do their whole life. We all know the story of the kid who couldn't throw the football, you know, at the training camp because they'd never had the opportunity to throw a football. I mean, why did I not phone Michelle and say, hey, why don't your volleyball kids, I'll do a practice in basketball and I'll send them to you and you teach them volleyball for a couple practices. But why do we not do that? Why don't we use them as team building experiences? I just had a great message from a very renowned coach in Winnipeg who talked about taking his kids over the summer on a hike, right? Some of these kids have never been out around a lake hiking. We held this summer a multi-sport camps, and one of my colleagues who's here today told me that her daughter, who plays the ringette and softball, her favorite thing at camp was fencing. Judo, sorry. Who knew? But if she hadn't gone to that multi-sport camp, and she may never do judo, but my point is it's about exposure and about a connection and just changing the way we think. We think differently than men. I'm convinced. Nature, nurture, I don't care. We don't have the same kind of egos. We don't have the same kind of confidence. So we need to change the way we teach, the way we coach, the way we even, talk to them.
I talk too much.
I'm gonna go over here, but that made me think a little bit because I have coached girls and then I went to coaching boys. And the first year that I coached my boys, this is exactly what you said about what we need to help girls do. I think is because you're right. When I coached girls, we would have a water break, right? Water break. They get their water and they stand and they wait for me to tell them what to do, whether that was my style or not. That's what they did. I never realized they did that until I started coaching boys. And the first water break was like, balls everywhere. I'm like, how is this efficient? Ken Bentley would have blown his brains out. You know what I'm saying? Look, that was not efficient. Get the balls back in the bucket. What are you doing? Now, you'll be happy to know that all was in my head. And I just stood there, I went, just be quiet for a bit. I just was quiet, and they were nuts. They were nuts. And I thought, oh, and what really struck me is, they actually really want to play volleyball. They're so excited to get into that bucket and get the balls out before they even took a sip. And the girls don't do that, right? I've coached boys, but I want to go back to girls after, but I think I'm going to tell them, it's water break. And see how many spike serves you can get in there. Because you're never going to spike serve in a real game if I'm your coach, but if you want to do it in between, grab it. Go have some fun. And they don't do that, and we treat them differently because of it, because we can. And I assumed the boys were, at first, my first reaction was the boys were being disrespectful. They weren't. They were playing, man. Aren't we at the gym to play? So I've learned from that. And the girls need to be in the gym to play. And I think I've learned that just now today, so I just wanted to, yay, light bulb moment. Okay, Laura, next thing. How can we encourage more women, not just young women, but women, you coach, right? And you played for a long time, now you're giving back. And how do we encourage more women to take those leadership roles? What do you think we have to do? Maybe even early on, or as we are now the age of coaching?
I think it's just talking to high school students, going in, having teachers. I can talk from a teacher perspective, is talking to, I see a bunch of kids that I've taught from a bunch of different schools, Gimli and Fisher Branch, sitting there and talking to them about, or getting them involved in the coaching process. When you're in varsity and you're still involved in sport, as we hope that you will continue to be, you can help out with the JV teams. You can go to the middle school, we can set up internships, we can get girls who are involved in sport helping out with younger girls involved in sport. And I think that's the biggest piece, is showing them that those opportunities are there. It's not hard. Any teacher will welcome you. If any coach, I'm sure, will welcome you. We want you to help. So, high school girls over there, we want you to help.
I think there's an interesting dynamic that goes on in coaching, and again, generally. That as coaches, we have a huge expectation for people to be incredibly amazing people. They not only have to be the best technician out there, they have to be the best teacher, they have to understand people and how they tick, be able to communicate with them, be able to communicate with parents. Oh my Lord, that's a big one these days. They have to organize, all the bus rides, all the tournaments, all the logistics, all the communications. Like, we're asking people, and a psychologist, and a nutritionist, and a strength and conditioning coach, that we expect them to do all of that and to be perfect at it. And not one person is perfect at any of those things, right? Yet, it's amazing what coaches really do, right? Yeah. Like where they've taken some of our children. The point for me would be around women. Again, we like to be with each other. Why do we go for lunch? Because we can talk. Why do we, let's get together. And we need to surround ourselves with people. And they don't necessarily need to be other women. They need to be boys and men as well, but we need a team of people to do this. It's like, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to organize sport and to coach. So I think we really need to empower women to be more confident and to go to a teacher like Laura and say, I want to be mentored by you, right? Kathy and I won't name a few other people in it, but we're going to start the Old Women's Club, and we'll give you our phone numbers. Call us. We're more than willing, because it is a journey. I would coach very differently now than I did 30 years ago. I became a parent and had a huge enlightenment, right? I started coaching how I was coached, which was by men, and probably not from a very good knowledge base and compassion base. So I think we really again need to think more thoughtfully about how we do things, how we talk to children, how we engage them, asking them what they find fun. I can tell you right now, coaching boys, what I think is a fun drill, and what they think is a fun drill, totally different.
I think I just wanted to add that I think inviting other women out also. I think a lot of women, they watch MMA or UFC, and there is more women involved, and they're curious. Or at the gym, there's a lot of girlfriends that the guy's like, oh, how much we train? And they do, and I see them there, and they're really, it happens a lot. So I see the women sitting on the sideline, and I'm like, hey, did you want to do jiu-jitsu? And then they're like, turn us on. And they usually just for a second are like, I don't know, and some of them are just like hard-nosed right away, but some of them are kind of, wondering about it or thinking about it. And, I think I'm loud. And multiple times there have been either the wife or the significant other of somebody else at the gym that has joined up, and sometimes it takes a few months, but literally it's just one invite. I also tell them, let me know when you're coming. I will be sure that I'm at the class so that you can have a partner. I would love that. I think as far as like sports, maybe, I'm not sure, I feel like football might be the same way too, because that's how I first started football. I loved watching it, and I don't know if it's maybe more the male-dominated sports where this is more successful in, but definitely having someone say like, it's okay that you don't know anything, I'll be there and I'll show you the basics, and you know, it's not judgmental. Yeah, so like I think that's definitely helped get a lot of women. At our open mat, when we do have it, we invite brand new people that have never done jiu-jitsu ever, and every single person there will just like swoop that person under their wing and welcome them and teach them stuff. So yeah. Kathy, you had?
I think that a lot of positive things are already happening. I think like the girls only wall climbing night, the Aurora Games, has anyone heard of those? Which is only women and different 6 or 7 different sports. They just started this year in New York, and it's a pretty amazing event that's going to carry. They hope to carry on, and they were very successful. I found out about them because my husband said a gymnast scored 10 on floor, and I said, no, that doesn't happen, so I better check this out, and I did. So we also have role models. We have basketball. Emily Potter is one of the best basketball players in Canada, and basketball sent her to schools and funded her to give talks at elementary schools across Winnipeg, and it was extremely successful. So, and we have role models right here. We have Janet McMahon, who is the head of sport in Manitoba. I mean, we do acknowledge Jeff, but I just started back at Sport Manitoba, and when I go to the 5th floor and I walk into that room, there are 3 men. The rest are women. On our yellow list of who to contact and their phone numbers, for all of the Sport Manitoba people, there are, and I have this written down, 45 women and 22 men. We certainly appreciate what the men do, but I mean, we are making progress. Women are running sport in Manitoba.
But what strikes me too, and that's so great to know, and we just need to keep working on that, because the Aurora Games, you said? Well, I'm in media, I've never heard of that in my life. So somewhere, and I'm rural, maybe is it because I'm rural, is it a what? Yeah, I can Google it, but I want someone to tell me as a woman in sport and in media that the Aurora Games are happening, so I can yell it out right across southern Manitoba on my radio stations, that kind of thing. But I think it's a good example of, I'm sitting here going, what is that? You know, and I'm a woman. And I would really like to know about that. So that's just a good encouragement for all of us. If you hear about an event like that, for you in the room, you know what I'm gonna tell? I'm gonna tell 2 friends, and you tell 2 friends. And not just about shampoo, like about stuff that matters, right? So I think that's really cool. So thank you for that. Thank you for letting us know about that. And we gotta all hang out with Kathy more. I'm telling you, Kathy, you know stuff. I'm really impressed. It's true. I'm making that funny, but I actually mean it. That's incredible. Even how you have done that. All right, I would like to go down this rope here and ask you, who inspired you to get into sport and stay in sport?
My parents. I'm not a parent, and I imagine parenting is really hard. Looking after my dog takes a toll, so having children, I can imagine, is very difficult, but the opportunities that my parents provided me, and for sport, and how my dad drove to Niverville 3 days a week for me to play hockey when I was in grade 10. So it was my parents that allowed me to stay involved in sport. They encouraged me. I was in soccer and volleyball and basketball and badminton and track and hockey, and we did all of it. And I think that was the biggest piece. So I think parents are huge, and then having the support in the school system was also a big piece. Teachers being supportive if I was away for sport. So that was it for me. Definitely parents.
Yeah, I would agree that I think in the beginning it was probably my dad. You know, he would just straight up kind of ask me like, you know, what are your goals? Like, what do you want? And you know, we could have that conversation, and him and my mom they would both support me through it, no matter what. And you know, for me, like as a Paralympic athlete and you know, a person with a disability, through my sports story isn't the most, like, it hasn't been the most easy. There's been discrimination and just harassment and, you know, a lot of stuff that would have, like, as a young person, made me not want to do sport. And it's thanks to my parents that, you know, that we just stayed on the track of this is my goal and this is what I wanted. But, you know, that's kind of through the elite level sport, and I think it's a little bit different. I would say now, as someone who's just I still compete and I'm still an athlete, but I do it because I love it. And I would say my inspiration right now is that I love the sport, that I do so much, and there isn't that many women in it, that it makes me want to share that sport. Or honestly, I think jiu-jitsu is like one of the best sports on this planet, and I would recommend it to absolutely anyone. And it is inclusive and it is accessible, and people just, you know, need to see if they're okay with being super sweaty and beat up on a daily basis. But it's, does it hurt? Yes. I almost wore a dress, but y'all can't see my bruises. But really it is like inviting more people to do the sport so that I can play with them. I mean, yeah.
Well, I can tell you, it wasn't the paycheck or the hours that inspired me. I think my story is a little bit different because I think, quite honestly, I wasn't a good enough athlete. So it was a lot of athletes around me that I was very inspired by, that I saw people who came from very difficult backgrounds who ended up becoming champions and leaders. And I saw a lot of women that I participated with who may not have become, you know, our Canadian national team or Olympic champions, but they became incredible women. Like, they are so productive, and they in business, in sport, as teachers. So to me, you know, again, thinking about those life lessons, because if we teach the values of sport, those benefits will be seen later on. I have to admit that I had some great male mentors, probably in my era, way more male mentors than I ever had female mentors. So I'm willing to change that if anybody wants my phone number. But I have to admit that there's a lot of men who have helped me along the way in incredible ways. So we can't male bash. We have to include them. They have to be part of our solutions.
I think my parents, well, there were 7 children, so we all did what we were supposed to do all of the time. We were very well behaved. Anyways, they supported us in that they didn't come to every game. They didn't come to watch us do all the sports that we participated in because they couldn't, because you times that by 7 and that's just not going to happen. So we're pretty independent in that era, I think, and we're on our own. And so we managed, but it was my grade 7 phys ed teacher, Rhoda Keynes, who said, you know, you're pretty good at gymnastics. Why don't I connect you with someone who coaches gymnastics? That was Pat Middleton, and then we got involved in gymnastics. And then Alfreda Gorman, you've probably heard the name Gorman, she's the one who started me judging. And it was because of that help from other people along the way, or support as I went along, saying, you know, maybe you could try this and you could do that. So I think you had not just the family support or the parents, but the community around you, and I think it really got me to where I got.
I know for me, I had a female coach in varsity volleyball, and she had just come out of the Winnipeg program. She had played at U of M for a couple of years, and coming to rural from a university program, she blew us all away. Like, she actually taught us how it really was, you know? We were all terrified of her, actually, because she ran a tough warm-up. We were already all like almost throwing up in the warm-up because she just cardiovascularly, like, she wasn't mean. She was just like, nope, keep going, nope, keep going. And I remember her as a woman, I felt like she gave me the license to be tough, you know, to play tough and train tough. And she expected that I could do that. And that inspired me. And I think one thing that strikes me as I coach more, for some kids that works really well. To be able to read the crowd is tough, because the way she coached was, it inspired those of us that were there, because our group, it happened to be sort of a tough group that had good athletes. And then sort of in the next couple of years, I even remember in my conversations with her how she had to change things a little bit because she wasn't getting enough girls out, because that happened to be a group that was a little bit afraid of that. that wasn't fun for them. So then, you know, I watched her learn through that, and that was inspiring for me, for sure too. And just for her being a strong female role model also was sort of my inspiration that spurred me on maybe even to believe that I could do even harder things than I thought I could do. And I think we can do that for some women if we see those young women that are willing to really go for it and all of that. So I think that's really cool. One thing I wanted to mention that I learned from, his name is Sheldon, and I'm forgetting his last name. Don't tell him I did. Yes, Sheldon Reynolds. Please don't tell him I forgot. I'm just old. Sheldon retired, right, from Sport Manitoba now, but he was with them for a long time. He came out.
John last night.
He was at Elton John last night, so he's still cool. He's retired, but he's still cool. He came out to Steinbeck to do a coaching clinic for a bunch of junior high coaches, and he asked the question, and I just want to ask you, and then I'm going to go to our last question. But he asked the question, so why, when you have a bunch of grade 7, it happened to be a volleyball clinic, so I'm sorry, I know you're not a whole volleyball. But it's a good question, because you could probably ask this in many sports, even though I don't know other sports nearly as well. Why in grade 7 can boys overhand serve, mostly, and girls mostly can't? I raised my hand, because I'm okay as a woman to say that God created us differently, and boys are just stronger in grade 7 than girls are. And I'm okay with that. He said, wrong-o. And I said, what? He said, because boys have thrown 10,000 baseballs or footballs or balls by the time they get to grade 7, and girls have colored and drawn and put puzzles together and chatted a lot. I had no clue. Like, I really didn't know that until he said that. And somewhere even in those young ages, that inspired me somewhere. We have to get them throwing the ball too. And why could I overhand serve in grade 7? I thought because I was maybe lucky. No, because I have a big brother who had 2 younger sisters already when I was born, and he was mad. So he was gonna play catch with me. I went home after that clinic and I hugged my brother Dale and I said, thank you for getting me to the Olympics. Right? Because he developed my arm because he had no one else to play catch with. Right? But that's amazing. But it's little things like that. So if you, I don't know, we can maybe spread that word, right? Hey, instead of that, not that those other activities are bad. That's great. And as a parent, sometimes I wish my boys would have just sat down and colored in a book. But we can do that for our young ladies. Okay, so my last question that I'm supposed to ask, and actually I really want to ask, do we have enough momentum now? And I'll just start here. Do you think, in what you've seen, do we have enough momentum and the momentum we need now as women in sport? Are we on the right track? What are your thoughts, either way?
Seeing everybody in this room, I would say we are on the right track. And we are building momentum as we go, and we can't stop now. We have to keep going, and we have to keep building, and once again, I'll go back to the rural thing. It has to be out in rural communities as well. I think in the city, there's more opportunity, there's more people, right? So, but we have to keep building it, and it has to spread north, south, east, west from the city as well. But I think we're on the right track, just looking at the amount of people here wanting females to be involved in sport and supporting females in sport, seeing young females here looking at being involved in sport as they get older. That's great. I think we are headed in the right direction.
I agree. I think the foundation is there. I think it covers most sports, and from like the grassroots all the way up to the elite level. I think that whole foundation is there, and I think everyone should just, challenge accepted.
Well, I think it's getting better, but I came back from the 2017 Canada Games back to my old job, and I attended federal, provincial, territorial sport committees on behalf of Manitoba, which is, you don't really need to know what all those letters stand for, but anyway, it's all the national sport. And we have a work group on women and girls in sport. We have some very smart people, from researchers from all kinds of universities, a guy named Dr. Bruce Kidd, many people might know that name. They presented a paper to us, and I honestly was gobsmacked that there's been some initiatives around women in sport in this country for quite a while, including some coaching apprenticeship, some dollars through cause and that sort of thing. And we've actually made zero progress in the last 10 years. So when you talk about the time is now, the time is now. So my message to everyone in the room and to anyone that you want to talk to, is that we need to be innovative, creative. We need to do things that are new and not carrying down the same paths. They're not working. Look at our women Indigenous population participating in sport. It's not there. Look at the newcomer population who are facing so many barriers. We have to remove those things. So women really do need to step it up. We need to advocate. We need to demand more resources, both human and financial. We need to set targets, have measures, and demonstrate that we are making progress.
Challenge accepted. So sometimes I go away from something and I think, well, what am I actually going to grab and take home, right? Someone said, well, what did you get out of that? So maybe I can sum it up a little bit, something concrete, right? Invite another woman to coach with you. Invite some girls to the soccer park and kick the ball around that you know in your community. I think about when I was playing, and I ended up playing long, but there were so many girls that I played with that were so passionate about volleyball, but then they just weren't good enough to play maybe at the next level. But I don't think anyone even thought to ask my high school teammates if they wanted to coach. I don't know, none of us even thought about that back then. And I think that's a great thing. And I think that inviting thing, Kirby, is so powerful. Everyone likes to be invited. Don't you? I do. Like, even if I have to say no a couple times, right?
Don't send an email.
No, we'll do it by person, eh? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. But I think it's some great perspective. So do the inviting and be that person that sort of takes it out of there. Know that, one thing that struck me too is we need to work together with the structure that's there, and us women need to work with men. And I find that in my experience coaching with mostly men, and I think at Volleyball Nationals, the 17U level last year, there were, 65, 17U teams or 70, and there were 2 women coaching. And I think I was the only head coach. But you have to step in and get in those conversations with the guys and become that and learn from them. Respect them so they respect you back. I think that's important. I think that's really, really important. And don't assume that they think something of you because you're a woman. We do that to ourselves because we're bad to ourselves. And we say, oh, they don't think I'm as good as them because they never said that. Did they say that? Did they say, is that, oh, you're a mind reader. Well, most of us moms are a bit, but, right? I think that's important. I heard that today. And just, Kathy, I heard you in that you said there are some organizations that actually have concrete things set out. And, to push for that in different organizations and to get on boards. And let's be honest, it is hard. It is hard when you have kids at home or a dog. But it's true, right? I mean, we have homes to take care of and lives and friends that we want to get together with and those things, and it's busy. But to take that step and be maybe on a board, it's not hard to get on a board. It's free, and they'll beg you to be there. And it may take more of your time. But if we want to make noise, we have to be willing, right? To fill up that one more maybe night on the calendar, and just have your voice be heard. I think that's important. And I don't know if anyone else has anything else to add, but I think this has been amazing. Can we give these ladies a big round of applause?